Hi, I'm Tony.
Hi, I'm Lisa. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Lisa. I noticed a sign, Voice of San Diego. What do you guys do there?
So Voice of San Diego is a nonprofit news outlet. I'm a reporter for Voice. We mainly do investigative and in-depth reporting, and I report a lot on homelessness. We also have some media partnerships with NBC7 San Diego and KPBS, and also Kogo Radio. So sometimes you might see or hear us somewhere else.
Yeah, that's good for me because I don't charge my phone a lot, so I can't always get you on the internet, but the radio, I can do that. Population of homelessness has increased. I don't think that's doubled, but it's increased continually. What got us to this point of so many homeless and things not really being taken care of?
Well, there isn't really one leader or policy that you can blame on what we're facing here. What I would say is California is a really high-cost housing market, and so we really are feeling that housing crisis in the form of homelessness more than a lot of other communities. One of our problems, though, in San Diego, though, is that as other communities have started to coordinate and get more on the same page and focus on a model known as Housing First, which says we can solve homelessness by putting somebody in a house quickly and really focus on that issue versus maybe some others first. We've been slower to move to those things. So one issue that has come up repeatedly in San Diego is that we've had a lot of people working on a lot of initiatives. They are very well intentioned. They're all great people working on these initiatives, but they're not all singing from the same song sheet. And sometimes there are differing ideas about what does housing first mean? Or what does a housing focus mean? And so right now there are efforts underway to try to get everybody on the same page. So the regional plan that you mentioned earlier is really an effort to try to establish common goals for the whole region so that everybody, all the different cities, there are 18 cities in San Diego County, can all be coordinated, that all these different business groups who are looking at this issue, or just residents who show up at community meetings and are angry, can all read the same plan and follow it.
Yeah, because they all have the same desire. They want to help homeless, or they don't want to see them in front of their businesses. Either way, they want the problem taken care of. So there's a lot of people who have different ideas that we can house the homeless at Murphy Stadium and get them off the streets immediately. Then there's the other side that wants permanent housing, which is a more permanent solution to really solve the issue. How do you see that tension playing out?
Well, it's certainly the hot button issue right now here in regard to how we deal with homelessness in San Diego. So what's happening, like you pointed out, is there are all these ideas. Just about every group, it seems, has its own idea for how to address this. So Housing First obviously focuses on getting somebody into housing as quickly as possible to get them off the street. One of the tensions in San Diego is we don't have a lot of housing that we can immediately put people into. So there are a lot of people that are in the system in line, but there's not an immediate place for them to go. And so there are folks in some groups that are saying, okay, we should invest in shelters that people can go into in the meantime while we wait for all this permanent housing to be developed. And then there are other people who are saying, well, we don't want to do that because we might take away financial resources that we could use to have a long-term solution that helps these folks permanently. And I think that that's a thing that's going to continue to play out until there's key leadership that really establishes what is San Diego's pathway on this issue, or what is the strategy? Because right now, there are lots of different groups that are coming up with their own strategies in the absence of a regional one. Because a lot of questions are unanswered right now. How many housing units do we know are going to be coming out and ready and available in the next 5 years? There are some groups that are trying to look at that, but we don't really have a lot of regional answers.
Yeah, that's true. And I think it's going to have to be a lot of different ways of solving that issue. Like when we talked to people who had shared housing in Sacramento, I mean, they took a 3-bedroom house, turned it into a 6-bedroom house. And there's other ways of doing it besides just building. I mean, that seems like everybody's focused on just build, get the money and build it. Yeah, that's probably what we're going to have to do. But there's other ways to go and house people too. But what I'm concerned with is if they do focus on this, on the tent, you know, and all this money it takes to house people, is that might take the focus off the real need, which is to get people permanent housing and help for whatever caused them to become homeless in the first place. That is, I think, the most important part. Because if you get them off the street, then out of sight, out of mind, people think, oh, it's solved. You know, no more money, no more bonds, no more anything. You know. So how costly are these solutions, like immediate solutions to the tents and things like that?
Well, there are some estimates out there. What I would say is that the concern that comes up a lot with advocates that are more on the housing first side is that this is an expensive problem and there are at least somewhat limited resources to help. Yeah. And if we focus on a solution that only will help us for a couple years and invest millions of dollars in that, even though it might just cost, you know, a certain amount per day for a person, that will add up a lot over a year, that takes away from the resources that we have available to build housing or invest in subsidies that might help somebody move into a house that's already there. And so the concern is just trying to balance that. And, you know, one of the arguments against the shelter beds, as you talked about, is that there are all these people in line. You're one of the people in line, so you've taken your assessment and you're waiting for some kind of help. Well, if we think of this like a bathtub, you know, if there's not a way to drain people out, meaning that there's a solution for them, the bathtub will just overflow. That's one analogy that one advocate here in town has used a lot to say, you know, we could just keep creating more bathtubs. You know, we could just keep filling up more bathtubs, or we could find a solution that is going to address the problem permanently. So, but it's complicated, of course, because we're talking about real people like yourself who are out there struggling, moving from block to block to try to avoid police officers, and
I'm amazed at the prices too. Like I heard it mentioned. I don't know how they came up with this amount, but it would be $17 a day to have a tent somewhere on county land, maybe Murphy Stadium or something. $17 a day? I could do it cheaper than that. If you let me use that land, I could do it cheaper than $17 a day. I'm sure I could. You could have security done by the homeless themselves. You can get certain people to do security and clean up of the bathrooms. I mean, the land's already owned by the city. How do they come to $17 a day? That's outrageous. I mean, it shouldn't cost that much. We've had regional plans in San Diego before and paid a lot of money to have them done, and they were just shelved. What is different about this regional plan?
Well, right now, we have a homelessness crisis. The numbers are up a lot. Politicians are under a lot of pressure on this issue. They're getting lots of calls from constituents. Meanwhile, there is an outcry from the community for some sort of response that's commensurate to the problem. And up till this point, we've had all these different groups seeing this problem grow in their neighborhoods, from North Park to East Village to Barrio Logan, all seeing big increases, and sometimes coming up with their own solutions that actually push the problem to another neighborhood or create a problem in another way. Or actually don't help somebody like you get off the street. They make it more complicated for you because you're having to move from Hillcrest to East Village and back and forth. And so right now, a lot of folks are really galvanized at the leadership levels to come up with some kind of strategy to address this. And so these two regional groups, the Regional Task Force on the Homeless, which does the point-in-time count every year, and the Continuum of Care Council, which had been responsible for many years to dole out the HUD money, the federal money that's coming in to address homelessness, merged and funded together a regional plan to try to come up with that strategy that the community's asking for. Now, again, one of the issues has been that there are all these different groups doing things well-intentioned, but they're not coordinated, and that's causing problems. So the goal of the regional plan is to basically go from many voices and strategies to one voice and strategy. So one thing that you probably learned, and certainly struck me when I was watching the videos about Houston, is everybody that you interviewed seemed to be kind of telling the same story. They a lot of times were even using the same talking points.
It's true.
And they also were very focused on immediately getting somebody into housing as quickly as possible.
That's true.
They were all singing from that same song sheet. And so this is now what San Diego leaders are hoping to accomplish with the regional plan. But that doesn't mean that implementing it is going to be easy. Because again, you have all these different groups with different motivations and concerns. You have nonprofits that have built a success in their own niche, right? But maybe this regional plan might imperil somehow what they've built for themselves. Maybe in the regional plan we focus on this strategy, and this nonprofit or group over here is focused on this one, and they have a lot of buy-in, and they have a lot of philanthropists that are supporting them to do that. And so we have a big turning point coming up here in San Diego. When this report comes out, there are going to be a lot of tough decisions for policymakers, for funders, and for community members as well, who will have to decide if they are willing to buy into this plan and then kind of help, put that political pressure on to really make it happen.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you have to care. I'm glad you brought up Houston, because that was the overwhelming feeling that everybody was on the same page. But more than that, they cared. They were excited about it. They wanted to keep going.
Yeah, you could hear that for sure in the interviews. Like, people were really passionate. Yeah,
and the mayor was determined. Whether she looked bad or not, she was determined to have that happen. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because now County Supervisor Ron Roberts is now in charge as the chair of the Regional Task Force on the Homeless. And Chris Ward, who's a city councilman who was just elected, he's our representative on the city council. I live in North Park, you're in downtown. And so they are leading this group now. And that's significant. A lot of people outside of San Diego tell me that that's significant too, because we have some key political leaders that are, saying they're going to back up this plan. Mayor Kevin Faulkner is also saying that he's going to support it. We'll see how this all plays out. And the task force recently hired Gordon Walker, who had some success in Utah reducing chronic homelessness, which is a specific brand of homelessness, I will say. That's people who've been on the street for a long time and have some sort of disability. So that's not the whole population, but there is kind of building, some political will building kind of work that's being done now to try to potentially, enforce a regional strategy.
It does seem that way.
Yeah, there's a lot to be done still.
Yeah, it does seem that way. And even with people that want to help you, like people would pass sandwiches out, or do you need socks or shoes, whatever. Now they're saying, what else can I do for you? They want to do more. Now's the time to, do more.
Well, and that's great that they're, people are asking that question.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting because, even when it comes down to that, like street level coordination, one thing that's come up a few times in my reporting is that there's this debate over, should you give somebody food or water?
Of course.
And also, and there are some people that, push against that and say that that's not the right approach. Obviously, there are a lot of people like you who would say, well, I've got to live out here. But also even just in terms of coordination with that. You probably see this, but I've had a lot of homeless people talk to me about how on Wednesday, 5 groups come out with food, and then on Thursday, the next day, there's nobody.
That's true.
So you're kind of seeing that lack of coordination even at that level.
It's true. It's true. There's an overwhelming amount of food on Fridays, and there's nothing on Monday.
So you try to save it? Try to save it so you've got some food?
Yeah. But there's places you can go always, every day of the week, to have breakfast and dinner, though. That you can. It's just a hassle because you have to wait a long time, and you have to bring all your things, and when you're in there, you can't watch your things, so they're out there, It's difficult to move everything.
How do you manage that with your stuff?
My girlfriend watches it while I go in, or I watch it when she goes in, or something like that, or we just don't do that. We just go and make money and buy our food. I don't go to places like St. Vincent de Paul because it's just, it's 2 hours out of your day to have lunch, you know. Sometimes it's cheaper just to go buy it.
Those are things that people, I think, just have no concept of.
Yeah, why don't you go in and take the bed? Well, to go in and take that bed, I have to give up everything I own. I have to get rid of it. You know, there's no place to store it. I have to give up my dog and my girlfriend. I mean, for what? For a place for 45 days?
Yeah,
and they come out on the street and I have nothing?
Do you feel confident that if you went into one of those shelters that you would get a house or get a place to live? No.
No, I don't feel it at all.
Some cities that have had success with this have really focused on what do we need to do in our programs to actually better serve our customer.
Yeah.
Our customer is a homeless individual who lives on the street. Yeah. What things do they need? It's like if you owned a pizza place and I came in and I said, I don't like pepperoni, and you kept serving me pepperoni, I probably wouldn't come back. I mean, the concept is pretty simple, but
and
sometimes hard to implement, I guess.
It's true. In Houston, it's a totally different thing. I mean, for instance, when you do your wash, they give you these little things to wear because they realize you might only have one change of clothes. It's difficult. It's difficult to be. They don't care. That's the feeling you get from the service providers here, that they really don't care.
And that's recent. You feel that way.
Yeah. But
I will say, as a reporter, a lot of times it's hard for me to figure out how a program sometimes exactly works.
Yeah.
I talk to people at the high level, and I can definitely tell you that they care. They really do care and are passionate.
Yeah.
But in terms of what the program is actually like, at the line level, that's something that's really interesting to me.
A lot of people ask me on the street, a lot of just regular people, what more can I do to help? They want to. One lady opened her purse like this and said, "Take what you need."
Wow! Whoa!
Yeah, and I was just so taken back from that. But what can the general public do if they want to do more than just handing out food and water?
So the thing that I tell people most often is that if you care about your issue, don't feel like you have to know what the solution is. It's pretty complicated. But the easiest thing to do is to call your political representatives and say, I care about this issue of homelessness. And maybe start attending some meetings on the topic to learn more, or do some research on local groups. Maybe attend a regional task force on the homeless meeting to learn a little bit more about some of the regional efforts underway, and then go from there and decide if there's a particular thing that you'd like to advocate. But I think the most important thing is letting your politicians know that you care about this. They have tons of different priorities that they're looking at. And so just letting them know that you care about this issue, and maybe getting some friends together who also say that they care, can have a big impact.
Maybe you can tell me a little bit about what you know about the encroachment law and ticketing homeless people for sleeping on the street.
So I know you've had some personal interaction with this topic. So the police department has different teams of officers who work on the issue of homelessness. You have your homeless outreach team who goes and does outreach and potentially offers services. You have a quality of life team, and then you have your beat officers who are out there and interacting with people. So when a police officer gets a complaint, usually it's from a business owner or a resident about a person that maybe has settled on a sidewalk or is in the area. An officer will go out eventually. They get a lot of different calls, so don't always get out there right away. And they will decide if they should warn a person for what's called encroachment. And encroachment is essentially being in the public right of way. And historically, this had been used for trash or debris. But what we're seeing, in the past several years is that the police are increasingly using this ordinance on the books to ticket homeless people like yourself. And historically, they'd used more often another law known as illegal lodging. But there's a higher bar for that. And there's also a legal settlement that dictates how the police can enforce illegal lodging. So essentially between, I believe it's about 9 o'clock at night and 5:30 in the morning, police will not ticket somebody for illegal lodging unless they can show that there was a shelter bed available to that person that was offered. And this particular settlement dictates how enforcement works downtown where you live.
Yeah.
And so attorneys who are looking at this issue and advocates have said that they feel like the city is using encroachment to enforce against homeless individuals as a way to respond to all these complaints, and that it's not really effective. It's not really helping you to end your homelessness. It's complicating issues for you. And they're also saying that they feel that the city's using it as a way to get around this settlement from several years back. Now, the police, who I've spent quite a bit of time talking to as well, they disagree. They argue that their enforcement strategy is actually compassionate, because they say the first time they come out, they're not going to give you a citation right away. They're going to give you a warning. And then the next time they come out, they will offer some sort of service to you before they would cite you. Now, I have heard some stories to the contrary about how this is being handled. I'd be really interested in hearing what your experience has been, at a line level dealing with police officers.
Yeah, they're pretty respectful. I mean, I have gotten a lot of warnings, and then a lot of tickets, and then went to jail, and then some more warnings and some more tickets, and next is probably jail again. But they've been real lenient with me. But now they're posting there saying we can't stay there even between 9 and 5.
So the bike officers are parking there?
Yes, they're waiting hours for us to arrive there. Hours. He was there from 7 to 11, waiting for us to come back to our spot.
Wow.
And we just waited him out until he left, and we went back. But I don't see how they can say that we can't stay there. I mean, based on complaints, who's complaining? Nobody's complaining from the business. The neighbors around there like us a lot. They come and talk to us all the time. So I don't know why they base that on, and I don't know if I have to follow it or not. I mean, I'm respectful and everything, but but I'm limited on where I can stay. I'm limited. 16th Street is where most of the food is, and I'm banned from that street.
You have a stay-away order?
Yes.
Okay.
Which I don't understand that whole issue either.
Oh, I've talked to a few people in the last week who have stay-away orders.
Yeah, I have a stay-away from 16th.
And it's a lot of them right where the services are.
That's where the food is.
Yeah.
They want to make it difficult for you.
Wow.
Yeah. So I can't go to 16th. I can't go to outside Smart and Final, which is, I think, G Street. All the places that are that are out of the general mix of all the people, I can't go, so now I'm starting to be limited where I'm thinking, where can I go after this? Because I'm probably going to have to move from this spot, which is a nice spot because nobody else is there. It's just hard. I mean, at 11 o'clock, my girlfriend, my dog, and I are just sitting there waiting for this guy to leave so we can go to sleep because we got to get up at 4 in the morning. It's just...
Wow. See, when I hear that, what I think are dollar signs. That's a lot of city resources and taxpayer dollars. So if that is a police officer, that's interesting. The police kind of get caught in the middle between a rock and a hard place. Their job is to enforce the laws and also to respond to complaints. And so there are two sides to this story. There's the person calling and complaining, the business owner who's angry, and then there's you on the other side who's trying to live his life. And they're just caught right in between trying to make both of you happy. And the business owner doesn't think they're doing enough. And you think they're doing too much. And what do you do? There aren't easy answers.
No, there's not. And I always try to pick a place where we won't cause a nuisance, like a business that's closed. Like we stay there when he's closed, so it doesn't bother him. When he opens, we're gone. I try to pick that kind of, but there's people that don't care about that. They'll be right in front of a business when they're open. I can't do that.
There has been some discussion at the city level, including City Councilman Chris Ward has talked about whether it might make sense for the city to have safe zones for homeless people. Do you think, would you take advantage of something like that?
Yes. Yeah, I would. Yeah, if it wasn't too far from, because realizing we don't have cars and bus passes, so we're limited to our bikes and walking. So doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, have to be pretty much close to downtown. And the food is all down here for homeless people. So it can't be like way out. And it was nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
Great to meet you too.
Great to talk with you.